Yo quisiera saber cuáles han sido tus referentes, primera pregunta, en fotografía.
I don't get inspired by that. I look at other things. I usually, as we said, what the three have in common is eternal nomads. So what I have more in my mind is texts, poetry, or just a simple word that obsesses me.
Sí.
Or a phrase I just read, or something I saw, another image. But I don't really look for inspiration in that sort of other people's work. Perhaps more painters, but never really photographers. And when I go on my hunts for images, I look for something specific that is in my head before.
Ajá.
And then I kind of transform what I see to fit into my head. So in a way, I work with the landscape. Mm-hmm. I make it to my landscape, or I tame it like an animal. The landscape is not there how it is. I make it to what I want to have it in my, that fits my head.
Mm-hmm. ¿Por qué tú te has seguido con la fotografía, con la técnica clásica, química, y no has centrado en la fotografía digital?
Why have you chosen like chemical photography instead of digital?
First of all, I'm old. And, you know, when I was born, everybody was working in the dark room.
Me too.
Right. So, and then I stuck to that method. But I never had a question, because I always worked, I work with a very cheap camera. It's a Canon automatic camera. You know, for me, just the idea of fiddling around to change lights or something doesn't work, because I see something and I'm really like a hunter. I shoot and go on. I don't have time to, you know, find the right button. So I always have the same camera, and if one is broken, I just buy another one now on eBay, because they don't get made anymore.
Yeah.
And there was a time, I worked a lot of India. I had for 5 years a photo lab in India, and all of a sudden India changed. That was in the mid-90s. It was one of the first countries that changed immediately from analog photography into digital photography, and you couldn't even buy a film anymore or battery, so I ran out of it. And it was such a catastrophe for me. So then I decided perhaps I should work with a digital camera. I bought one, I tried, and it didn't work for me, because first of all, I really like to discipline myself on the instant. You know, like everybody does photos all the time, and then you make the photo on the computer. I find that not really, for me, interesting. I like that moment, because, as you said, it is that precise moment of time. And only in that way it is a document, because it's a pure document of time. Oh. And to capture that moment is important for me right on there, and not as a pre-work on the computer years later or moments later or whatever. And then also, I like, a lot of times, you know, I did my photos myself in the darkroom. I don't do this now anymore. Also, they're very big, they're very time consuming. But I like that they are printed on this paper, which gives them a complete different surface, like this. I mean, this is digital, and this is, you know, it's a complete different thing. Yes. Mm-hmm. So I like that processors. I also like that a lot of times they are imperfect. They have, you know, dust, because I always forget to clean my camera, or there's always things that don't work. So it's part of it, and I kind of live with it and like with it. So when I worked in India and they didn't have any material anymore, I brought all of that. I brought even projector, I brought the chemicals, I brought the paper, which was for a while not even easy to get. Now it's back in production, you can order it. So it was hard work to get to the result I wanted, and I'm always pleased, you know, when I just did some work when I was with Nicholas for an exhibition in Tashkent, and we traveled in Uzbekistan, and then you get, you know, from the Photoshop or the contact sheets, I'm like, oh my God, what a waste of time. They're all really bad. And then I sent them to my photo lab, which is in Brussels, and I'm always amazed of the result, because all of a sudden, you know, they are on this thick paper and they are alive and they have complete different colors and they have a life by its own. And then I'm really pleased. I thought, I'm never going to change and work on the computer.
Sí. No, la otra pregunta que tiene que ver con esto también es ¿por qué tu elección del blanco y negro?
Black and, but you know, I did, and I have some things in here because a few years back I had an exhibition in China with 250 of these big photos, and there were about 50 or 40 color photos. Because at that time I had a machine that produced, and I had somebody to produce this machine. But that's a process that is extremely complicated if you don't do it digital, if you do it in the old-fashioned way, to produce it on the machine. But they were quite nice because they looked like paintings. They were like watercolors, you know?
Sí.
And they also didn't look like what you associate with color photos. I do like that, but it has become very difficult to produce that.
Claro.
Nobody does that anymore.
Claro, yo agregaría además que en una fotografía blanco y negro, quienes sabemos que la fotografía, que la composición es la parte subjetiva de la fotografía, los colores en una composición pesan y pesan mucho.
Yes.
En cambio, cuando yo hago una fotografía, elijo llevar esa fotografía a escala de grises, lo que pesan son otras cosas.
Yes.
Pesan las formas,
Yes.
pesan los personajes.
Yeah, yeah. And people look better, black and white.
Ok. Lo otro que para mí es muy importante, y acá yo sé que yo me considero a pesar de haber vivido años en el centro del mundo, me considero un artista de la periferia.
Periphery, okay. Meaning this country?
Sí. Esto
Okay.
para mí es una esquinita del mundo perdida.
Okay. Right.
Entonces, en este país y en América Latina, y ni que hablar en África o ni que hablar en Asia, los contrastes son muy fuertes.
Strong.
La pobreza es muy fuerte.
Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah.
La religión es muy fuerte.
Sure.
Entonces, yo he encontrado mucho en tu trabajo un interés muy grande en ese tipo de cosas.
Well, I traveled a lot to India, and this is, you know, India and Mexico, and these are the two countries.
Que dos países.
Where, yes, because what I really like to show, or to what is really important, is the sacred and profane at the same time. And I think in Europe or in America we have lost that notion a little bit, or we split it. It's either sacred or profane, and that is not in these countries. There is a fusion of this, and I think in the daily rituals, in the terms of Indian religious cult, but also in Mexico, that is very present still. And it's a different approach to life, and I like that very much. If you ask me for an influence, my biggest influencer was...
Wim Wenders?
No.
No.
Too romantic, too Germanic.
Too romantic.
My big influence was a film called Sans Soleil, made by a documentary photographer, Chris Marker. Sunless, it's called, and it is probably the most fantastic, revolutionary, greatest documentary on exactly what I would think the interpretation of life, or how he sees the world, starting in Norway or Scandinavia and going all the way between Guinea-Bissau and Japan and Africa, always on the search on exactly that profane and the sacred. And this film, I just saw it the other day, because always when I know I have to speak, I look at it and are reminded, or want to be reminded of the inspiration what that film was and is for me, because even today, after 30 years, it's so incredibly beautiful. It's like a photographed poem. And I think ever since I saw that film in reality, my idea is one day I'm hiring a cameraman, I take just a backpack, or camera woman to be correct, and just go without any plan, any script, and travel the world. This is my real dream, and I'm going to do this eventually.
Bien, entonces entiendo perfecto.
But you know, I can tell you already now, I'm still going to produce the same images.
Ajá.
We have a question here.
Está bien. ¿Sí?
We have a public question here.
Por favor.
Oops, just a minute. In English to make it easier for you. I would like to know if, as a lady, have you ever had any problems in a man's world when you go to China, India, etc.?
No.
Aye, great. I'm happy for you. Because usually men, I've had problems as a lady in India, that's why I'm asking you.
No.
But you haven't. Okay,
Yeah.
lovely, great.
Thanks God, yes.
Qué bueno. Tuviste suerte.
Yeah.
¿Alguna otra pregunta, por favor? ¿Sí? No, yo realmente me quedo muy impresionado por varias cosas. Primero porque lo que tú... Entonces, estás diciendo cosa que es bastante también fuera de lo común. ¿Sí? Me quedo con esta línea de trabajo y voy a seguir trabajando en esta línea.
But you know, perhaps also I consider myself really not a photographer, an artist. So as an artist, I'm no more in that technical box. I can do what I want. And I like, from my temperament, a crossover, a complete... I always like to push away every limit and every border. So a specific box or a specific subject thing always challenges me to break through.
No, lo entiendo y me parece... lo que pasa que hoy por hoy la riqueza, la fotografía se ha ido... digamos, la fotografía que estuvo muy aislada del resto de las disciplinas visuales.
But photography in the way that it was very isolated from the other visual disciplines.
Hoy hay un término que es contemporáneo que se llama artes visuales y la fotografía forma parte
Today
de
there
eso,
is a term called like visual arts, and photography is a part of that.
mucha gente que hace fotografía, pero te aclara, yo no soy fotógrafo.
A lot of people, they make photography.
But say they're not photographers.
No, digo, a mí me parece que la mezcla de técnicas, por supuesto, lo que tú haces con el lenguaje, pero también con otro tipo de técnicas, es algo que enriquece la obra, que en definitiva el artista es el responsable de llevarla hasta donde cree que debe llevarla, ¿verdad?
Me lo tenés que repetir.
That was complicated, right?
No. Sí. Ok. No. Lo que estoy diciendo es que hoy el artista, cualquier artista,
Today, every artist
no usa solo un lenguaje, puede usar varios.
doesn't use only one language, but
Yes.
they use various.
Y hay mucha gente que hace fotografía
There's a lot of people who do photography
y aclara muy bien
and say that they aren't photographers.
que no son fotógrafos.
Yes,
Right.
pues.
Yeah, so, yes.
Pero,
Y eso rompió, de alguna manera, rompió
and that
Okay.
kind of broke with
un círculo muy endogámico que la fotografía tenía.
very like endogamico,
Un círculo muy
very,
cerrado
very
que la
closed
fotografía
circle that
tenía.
photography had.
Yes.
Entonces, en ese sentido también estamos de acuerdo.
In that sense, we also agree upon that.
Bueno, yo no sé, la
We
verdad
have
podríamos
one more
seguir la
question. We
charla.
have one more question here.
Sí.
Renate.
Hi. I'm trying to do it in English, but Elisa helped me. My question is, how much time you have to stay in one place to feel inside that place and to be part of that country, for example, India? How much time you have to stay and be part of life there, maybe without your camera, to get that image, or you just get there and you take them? You have what I wanted to know how you
Not very
transit
fast.
very fast. So you get there and you
Yeah.
start taking images and
Yeah.
that happens. No, but because my question is, because you talk about Chris Marker and I do documentaries, and for us is you take time to get there to get inside people's life or people's reality, and or not even reality, because we just do films or different kind of themes, but the how you vinculate with people, if you get in touch with them, or you are an outside.
Completely outside. Because a lot of times in countries I work, I have to be very fast because I wouldn't be able to do these photos. I usually pretend, sometimes of course I ask, sometimes I set it up, but a lot of times it's really the instant and the moment. And if it's not done that moment, I cannot refine this image. So usually from travels like that, I have a lot of photos, but I also have the memory of these lost moments, which is as much as the photos.
Thank you.
Una cosa respecto a eso. Una cosa respecto a eso, a la pregunta de ella. Muchas veces uno piensa que para poder entender un lugar, cualquier lugar donde uno va, tiene que estar mucho tiempo ahí. Sin embargo, puede haber, cuando uno está poco tiempo, una mirada más superficial, pero que pone atención en algún tipo de cosas
attention to some
que la gente que vive ahí, en ese lugar,
the people that live
no las ve.
in a place like that they don't see.
But you know, when we travel like that, you don't understand the other. This is a fleeting moment you capture, and you understand yourself.
Sí, sí.
So the time I spent is not the time to understand another culture. It's the time I need to interpret that moment of my state of mind, of my landscape of the soul. So in that way, your question is answered, because of course I cannot understand this culture traveling through. I couldn't understand it if I spent 3 months to prepare. So I rather feel myself as a voyeur on a camera for my own sake, but not to interpret. I don't really position myself in the way to show what they are intended, or what, I only show what I see in that particular moment, and it's always fleeting.
That's the limit between photography and cinema, maybe.
Yeah.
Renate, te hago una pregunta especialmente sobre uno de tus trabajos,
I'm going to make a question about especially one of your work.
Mm-hmm.
que es el trabajo que tú tenés, que lo vi en tu página web,
That is the work that I saw on the website.
Yes.
sobre la fiesta de San Sebastián
Yes.
en Sicilia.
Yes, that was in Noto, in Sicilia, and that was shot, I don't exaggerate, I think in less than 5 minutes. It was one pellicule, and it was during the day. I went with my family. I had no intention of photographing, and we had some ice cream, and all of a sudden these gods come out, actually the Holy Sebastian, at 12 at noon, carried out by some church people, and all of a sudden there were these confetti blown in.
Porque es realmente una explosión.
It was an explosion of, like, let's say 10 minutes, and 3 minutes of it I just shot 36 photos, and I was so happy. I thought it's one of the best works I had, but it was no preparation, no understanding about anything. It just happened.
Y eso tenía que ver con todo, con la introducción que yo hice de lo que leí acerca de tu posición respecto al trabajo.
And that is very much, in his sense, what he says, like, it's the essence of what kind of like you do.
Yes.
¿De qué manera eso que tú estabas ahí quizás por casualidad?
Maybe you were there like by chance.
But totally by chance. But also, you know, sometimes because I love these processions, and then I want to go, I plan everything, I have enough film with me, I wait for the moment, and you know, it's all useless. I come home and there is not one photo I like. You know? That's a tragedy of my way of photography, but you know, it happens a lot.
Bueno, no sé, eso es todo lo que yo quería. Realmente quiero agradecerte, ha sido un placer.
That was all I wanted to ask, and it's been a pleasure.
Y si no hay más preguntas...
There aren't more questions? Then, yeah. We should say
Muchas
thank you very much,
gracias.
Renate.